Hey, it's Todd Duncan. Thank you so much for being part of Irrefutable, and thank you for watching Principle 2. Success can only be built on failure. This is a very, very powerful concept, and the reason why it is because as you think in regard to principle number one, everything can be improved. If you're going to improve anything, you're going to have to do things you haven't yet done. That is the only way improvement begins to take place. So, if that is the case, which it is, then you must have a healthy appetite around this idea of success and failure being brothers and sisters. I mean, that's essentially what they are. You cannot have one without the other. We're part of a family that's called growth and being our best and greatness and all of those things. And so anybody who wants to improve anything has to realize that it will require a new thing, something different that I've got to get good at. So, a big question as you think about your business and as you think about your partners that you've invited to Irrefutable is where do you guys need more practice? And I want to emphasize the idea that when we think about practice, we have to think about ultimately performance, right? The value of practice is it gets us game ready. One of the thoughts that I talk about often is that if you don't practice more than you play, when you play, you will look like you haven't practiced. So if we're going to use principle one and we are going to improve things because everything can be improved, we hone in on the things that make the most sense, that produce the biggest growth, that give us the largest fulfillment. And so the question then that has to be added to where do I need more practice is what are the behaviors that I need to practice that are necessary for me to play at a higher level of competitiveness in the market. And the same is true with your real estate agents and business partners. When we think about practice, we have to think about do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. But each time, do it better, 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 better. Back to compounding, right? So, what new behaviors are necessary for me to play at a higher level of competitiveness in the market? What behaviors are necessary for your real estate agents? What skills are you trying to get good at that maybe are not like in your DNA? And maybe these are skills that you will never be good at. And maybe it's that realization that would suggest a different course toward like delegation. But one of the things that I think is important is the idea of this exchange rate. The exchange rate is labor in, money out. And so when we think about skills, not only do we have to get really good at skills, but by getting good at skills, we're actually able to deliver and execute that skill faster and more efficiently. And that's going to set up principle three. So we're not going to go there just yet. But it's like if I were to take an example, let's talk about as a lender, do you have a 100% conversion rate of borrowers that you talk to contracts that close? And you're going to say, of course not. And I knew you were going to say that. But that's okay. That's not the issue. The issue is, where are you in relation to 100%? And you think about it that way, and you think about this idea that maybe right now I have 4 conversations with 4 different borrowers, and maybe I'm good enough where one of those converts. Credit pull, submission to processing, approval, funded loan. 3 did not, okay? For whatever reason. Let's just use this idea of what would need to happen for me to get better so that I could double from the 1 to 2. And this is an important thing to point out, and it's as relevant for your agent partners as it is to you. Usually people don't think about this idea of success and failure being necessary to actually improve, but in fact it is. Whatever you're doing right now in a borrower conversation that would yield, in this example, 1 funded loan out of 4 conversations is what it is. But if you're going to try to move that from 1 to 2, the question is, what do you change about your dialogue? What do you change in terms of accelerating trust? How do you develop a shorter conversation and presentation rather than a longer one, but having it be twice as effective? Because normally people think, like, if those are my numbers and I want to double my volume, I've got to go from talking to 4 people to talking to 8 people. What the 5 principles sets up is, no, you actually want to go from 4 to 3 to 2, but you want to increase your conversion rate from 25% to 50% to 75%. That's the way that you get more productivity for every hour that you spend in labor. I'm not going to get more productivity by consuming more time to talk to more people. I mean, I could, but that's not going to impact the hourly rate. What's going to impact the hourly rate is I talk to fewer people, better people, a different quality of convertibility type people. I go from just leads to referrals. I cross-sell the agent. We're a team as we have this conversation. And all of a sudden I go from 4 conversations to get 1 loan to now 4 conversations to get 2. And I have, in effect, doubled my efficiency. The same is true with your agents. And so it would be interesting to, see how many listing presentations they have to do to how many individual sellers to get a listing contract. It would be interesting to see how many buyers they need to talk to have a buyer commit to making an offer and closing that deal. The 2 of you together can spin that thing up in ways where you're bringing business to them, they're bringing more business to you, you're talking to more buyers from their side, whether they're pre-approved somewhere else or they know a lender, not just the ones that don't know a lender or aren't pre-approved. You're having this conversation. And if everything can be improved, then the more often you have a conversation around just this particular topic, the faster you guys will grow together. The more money your agents will make, and the more money you will make. See, every seller that says no, and every buyer that doesn't make an offer, and every borrower that doesn't say yes is a failure. But because this principle says success can only be built on failure, you don't have a negative attitude towards the failure. You don't have a woe is me attitude towards the failure. You don't get down in the dumps when somebody says no. Okay, you're not a victim, you're a victor. You rise up and you say, what can I do differently? What can I do better? What can we do together? How can we be in concert together? If you're the cello and I'm the violin, how do we play better music together? And that should force a question. How good are my scripts? How good are my dialogues? How good are my interactions? How good is all of that, right? And this is a worthy thing to begin considering and also to begin role-playing with your partners. Have you perfected what you say to convert a borrower to a client? When you come into that conversation, where is your level of confidence? Same holds true for your agents. When they're meeting with a seller, how confident are they? When they're meeting with a buyer, how confident are they? And here's the interesting thing. Conversion is the mother lode. If there's one skill that is worth pursuing, it is how many people say yes compared to how many people have an opportunity to say yes. At the end of the day, that becomes the biggest measurement of convertible cash flow to your business. Behind that is, how do we work better together? Behind that is the buyer experience, the journey. Behind that is, how do we create a 5-star experience all the time? Behind that is sitting down and making sure that my agents and I are in concert with how we deliver a beautiful consumer experience. I mean, these are all things that are super critical. But it gets back to that first question. Where do you need more practice? Where do you need more practice? Where do you need more practice? Practice oftentimes isn't exciting, but it is necessary. Practice is like the one skill that makes you better. When you think about anything that you have achieved, and I think right now, I learned how to ski. That was uncomfortable at first. I learned how to snowboard. That was uncomfortable at first. I learned how to golf. That was uncomfortable at first. I learned how to fly a plane. That was uncomfortable at first. I've learned and I've learned and I've learned and I've learned. And anything that I do well today, I can tell you is a result of being okay with doing it wrong for a period of time. And when you never want a skill set to get rusty, you must over practice. You must overtrain. Like I love being a pilot. I love flying recreationally. I love going places, right? But the practice that I do almost every week is called traffic pattern practice. I am at the airport. I do not get higher than 900 feet on takeoff. I am circling, landing, taking off, circling, landing, taking off, circling, landing, taking off, circling, landing, taking off. And I'll do that for 6 to 10 landings in a practice session. Why? Because that's the part that's most important. Making sure I don't collide with anybody is really important once I'm in the air. But taking off and landing are the two skill sets that set you up for safety as a pilot. Same thing holds true with anything. And what is important to note is you got to practice the right thing. Because if you practice the wrong thing, you can get as good at the wrong way as you could the right way with just understanding I got to do it differently. So, what is your attitude towards failure? If you had a healthy appetite towards failure, what would you try? If you knew that failure was a good thing and not a bad thing, even though at some point there is some pain depending on the failure, the interesting thing is it's all good. Because doing something the wrong way is the right way because it'll teach you a better way. And that is the essence of this principle. So have a healthy conversation with your partners. Figure out, where do we need to get better? Where do we need to practice? What do you need to say differently? What do I need to say differently? How can I help you win in the marketplace? How can I help you work with buyers so that they will make an offer and they will sign a purchase contract? How can I help you with sellers? What can I do with multiple offers? Everything is about improving. And when you decide to improve, you have to be okay with failure, because on the other side of failure is success. Enjoy this principle. It is huge. And I'll see you on Principle 3.